Well, good afternoon. This is Hound Dog Steve coming to you on the 11th of January, which is a Thursday afternoon. And I read a story in the paper that really caught my eye. And this is it right here. It says Chinese blacklist, an early glimpse to sweeping new social control. Okay, now this might seem an awful long way away in China, but as you will see by the little clips that I'm going to play for you now, this is already taking place in North America. Now, the sort of sweeping controls that you're seeing in China could probably only be done in a quasi-communist state like China or Russia, where there is heavy government control. And of course in North America these things have to be done with more finesse, a little bit more subtlety, because we're not used to that kind of control. But I can assure you this control is underway through the kind of things that they are trying to glean from the data that you provide by the places that you go to as you surf the net. And trust me, they will be starting to mark you, whether you are a good citizen or a bad citizen, based on whether you obey the decisions they make or not. So for example, if you get a little notice on your social media that it's time to take your flu shot and you refuse to get that flu shot, does that make you a dissident? Does that make you a contrarian, a conspiracy theorist? Does this make you a rebel? Does this make you radicalized because you're bucking the system? And who decides whether those vaccines are safe? We've already seen that the government employees actually get a different vaccine to the public, you know, the one that doesn't contain mercury or thimerosal. So we're already there, folks, and I hope you can see by these clips that I'm about to show you how we can connect the dots, even if it isn't quite in your face, but we can see what is coming down the track. So let's take a little look, shall we? And I thought I'd bring a few of these stories together. They're kind of interesting little connections, joining them all up, and the potential of where we might be heading in a few years' time. So, Chinese blacklist of an early glimpse of sweeping new social credit control. This guy here is Li Hu, and he was arrested and accused of fabricating and spreading rumours in 2013 and was required to pay a fee as part of his punishment. Okay, so Li Hu spent 2 decades pushing hard at the bounds of censorship in China. An accomplished journalist, he used a blog to accuse high-level officials of corruption and wrongdoing and to publish details of misconduct by authorities. In late 2013 he was arrested and accused of fabricating and spreading rumours. Late in 2016, in a separate case, a court found him guilty of defamation and ordered him to apologise on his social media account, which at the time had 740,000 followers. If he was unwilling to do that, the court said he could pay a verdict in an authorised news outlet. Mr. Liu paid the court $115, an amount he says he believed would cover the publication costs. Then he said the judge told him the entire verdict needed to be published at a cost of at least $1,330. But in the midst of Mr. Liu's attempt to seek legal redress early in 2017, he discovered that his life had been abruptly changed without notice. He had been caught up in the early reaches of a social credit system that China is developing as a pervasive new tool for social control. One expected to one day tighten the state's grip on its citizens. Critics have called it an Orwellian creation, a new kind of thought police. What it meant for Mr. Liu is that when he tried to buy a plane ticket, the booking system refused his purchase, saying he was not qualified. Other restrictions soon became apparent. He had been barred from buying property, taking out a loan, or travelling on the country's top-tier trains. There was no file, no police warrant, no official advance notification. They just cut me off from the things that I was once entitled to do, he said. What's really scary is there's nothing you can do about it. You can report it to no one. You are stuck in the middle of nowhere. Now, this was first envisioned in the mid-1990s. China's social credit system would assign a ranking to each of the country's almost 1.4 billion people. Unlike a Western rating based on a financial creditworthiness, China's social credit backers want their system to be all-encompassing, to evaluate not just financial matters but anything that might speak to a person's trustworthiness. In modern China, trust-keeping is insufficiently rewarded. The costs of breaking the trust tend to be low. A 2014 Chinese government document describing the government's plans notes. The social credit system aims to change that, raising the penalties for poor conduct and the rewards for deferential behaviour. And I would point out here, you see, the Chinese government document. So who is making the decision on what trustworthiness means? And believe you me, trustworthiness can be passed out into the most incredible small infractions, as we'll see down here. The blacklist, which has this summer swelled to 7.49 million names, is among the most visible early elements of a social credit rating system that can assess a person's commercial, social, political and moral life, providing benefits to those considered trustworthy and restrictions on those who are not. Chinese planners want the full system in place in 3 years. They say it will bring about a more honest, trustworthy country. But a Globe and Mail review of more than 24 cases, including one of a girl blacklisted as a toddler and another of a man blacklisted for stealing a few packets of cigarettes, suggests the system is exacting an outsized toll even now in its earliest days. Mr. Liu's case too shows how social credit system is being used to silence dissent. I'm going to say that again. Mr. Liu's case shows how the social credit system is being used to silence dissent. I can't say that Liu Hu's outspokenness led directly to his troubles, ha 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 ha, but we have to admit that Liu's case is not a rare case. Many people who are, like him, similarly controversial are very likely to endure the same ordeal, said Zhu Xiaoding, a Beijing lawyer who specializes in administrating procedures. And the lack of an appeal mechanism has made these people unable to seek the help they really need. That leaves them in despair because their social relations as well as their material lives have been ruined. Some cities have even changed the ringback tone, the sound a caller hears of those being punished, to warn the caller the person you are calling is on the Central Credit Blacklist. To some, that's a cause for optimism for the future of China. We are in dire need of rebuilding. We must rebuild social morality, business integrity, food safety, and officials' power, said Lin Junyu, an academic sometimes called the founder of China's social credit theory, which he has studied since the mid-1990s. Such a system, he said, can serve as a fantastic counter-terrorism tool promoting social stability and peaceful coexistence. The development of social credit is also an attempt to regain the breadth of control the Communist Party once wielded over the country through work units and the state economy, before the rise of private enterprise eroded that power. Social credit offers a powerful corrective whilst giving extraordinary new powers to those who design and maintain the system's algorithm. Put in the hands of the Chinese government the ability to determine your level of honesty, and you have a perfect storm of human rights abuses, says Maya Wang, Chinese researcher for Human Rights Watch. Take the blacklist, which has been devised to deliver shame as well as punishment to offenders. Its website holds a scrolling list of recent additions, and any name can be searched, typically yielding a brief description of the wrongdoing. The consequences can be severe. Wen Ziwen, the founder of a corporate entertainment firm, was placed on the list after a dispute with another company. Banks cut him off, rendering him unable to pay employees and hampering his ability to seek legal redress. Being discredited tainted his name, and business partners abandoned him. I felt like I was being tortured mentally and physically, he said. It's a psychological burden that will stick with you for quite a few years. Mr. Tsai paid a sum of money ordered by the court and was removed from the blacklist. In the eyes of social credit supporters, that makes him a success story. The principle is to create a disciplinary mechanism in which all of us will unite to pressure people who behave badly or commit crimes to come back to the right track, said Li Ming, a credit counseling expert in the Beijing Institute of Big Data Research. It is fair to think of social credit as an updated version of the Renshi Dangang, the decades-old Communist Party system of maintaining detailed personal files on cadres, said Chen Tan, a scholar at Guangzhou University and an expert on the system. Prone to abuse, the information in those secret files could easily end a person's career, but the social credit system will not suffer such issues since it will also set standards for government, Professor Chen said. And he said the positives outweigh the negatives. Social credit will set an important tone for society and push everyone to pay attention to their own behaviour. He expects it to be so effective that the government will save money on education because it won't need to spend a lot on moral campaigns and verbal encouragement. But the blacklist has already shown how governments and courts can use a system to upturn lives for questionable reasons. Take Song Zixuan, whose father was found guilty in 2014 of murdering his wife and was sentenced to death. Zixuan was 2 at the time. The court also fined her father. He did not pay the fine. So after his execution, the court assigned the responsibility for that penalty to Zixuan and her grandfather, saying in the verdict that they should also bear the debt that totaled more than $25,000. Because it hadn't been paid off, Zixuan's name had been added to the blacklist. Her grandfather, Gao Jiaxi, said in an interview, "The Globe has reviewed documents that show the courts transferring responsibility for the debt, but has been unable to independently verify her name on the blacklist, which does not publish details of minors." They said they didn't have the slightest bit of concern for the future of this girl, Mr. Gao said. For a normal person accidentally labelled as discredited, the aftermath is huge, let alone a girl of this age. This is disastrous. The Globe examined records of 24 people on the blacklist, many of whom had committed minor offences. One man was blacklisted over a $1,500 rent payment, another had not repaid $1,900, another failed to pay a $195 fine, yet another had shoplifted 10 packs of cigarettes worth $70. Mr. Lin, the intellectual father of the social credit system, agreed that in the cases of the shoplifter the punishment is a bit over the top. But for China, the value of creating the system far outweighs a few legal excesses, he said. Compared to the improvement in the atmosphere of the entire society, this sacrifice is worth it. It's a question, he added, of how much value to give human rights. A government that worries too much about individual freedoms can impede economic development, he said. China has chosen a different course, pursuing the well-being of a country as a priority above all others. If we have to risk turning China into a country like Iraq, Libya or the Philippines or Taiwan to obtain democracy, I'd rather we remain where we are right now, he said. Those are democracies that sacrifice people's lives and social stability. We don't need it. Okay, so this is a very, very dangerous step. I could probably only be done in this way in China because the population is already under strict control by the government. But what I'm very concerned about is having this stuff handed over to an algorithm. So here we are. Social networks should treat far-right extremists like Islamic State. Okay, so this is out of the Globe and Mail again, and so what is far-right? What does that actually mean? And to treat them like Islamic State, I mean, these are people who are hacking off other people's heads. This is from Archive. Google managers kept blacklists of conservative employees, and one manager even considered holding trials, alleges a new lawsuit. Okay, and here is the email. Down here is the manager's blacked out, of course. I'm still pondering, should inclusion on the list require something resembling a trial? Should people be removed after some period of time if they start behaving better? Okay, so again, who is making the decisions on what is better behavior? And trust me, the difference between conservative and liberal is a very fine line. And conservative is not ISIS. Conservative is not alt-right. So we have now gone into soft C conservatism from the white supremacist conservatism. Okay, you see how quickly these things can move along. And here's another little example of the mistakes that can happen. Facebook scraps fake news warnings after admitting they are having the opposite effect to the one intended. Research shows that a strong image placed next to articles could entrench deeply held beliefs. Okay, so this might seem like a bit of a sidebar. See, look, tips for spotting fake news. This might seem like a bit of a sidebar, but it shows you how wrong these algorithms can go, how mistaken they can become. Here's another little thing I came across when I was researching this story. Sex toy company apologizes for accidentally recording audio of people using its product. Okay, so here's the little baby right here. And I guess you use it in connection with your smartphone, as you see. There we go, up here. You can program this to do all kinds of my patterns, the music and sound. The unfortunate thing is that this is recording everything that's being said whilst you're playing around with your little sex toy. It just shows you how invasive some of these programs are, and to the lengths that people will go to collect your private and most personal data. And here we have something which I find very concerning. Scientific American: AI algorithms to prevent suicide gain traction. Facebook is one of several companies exploring ways to detect online behaviors that have been linked to self-harm. Okay, so businesses are just starting to test programs to automatically detect such signals. Mindstrong, for instance, an app developer in Palo Alto, California, is developing and testing machine learning algorithms to correlate the language that people use and their behavior, such as scrolling speed on smartphones, with symptoms of depression and other mental disorders. And what are they going to do with this information when they get it? Well, they're going to hand it over to a mental health care professional, and you'll be getting a little call from somebody, or you'll get some message saying that you need to go and talk to somebody because you are at risk of committing suicide. And if you feel, for example, that you don't feel that you are at risk and you don't go, well, that'll go on some list somewhere, and you will be marked down as being uncooperative. And also, say for example, you get into a confrontation with somebody, which, let's face it, confrontations do happen from time to time in life, and it happens to come to push happens to come to shove, and so the police decide to look into your social media history, and they come up with this kind of stuff, that you were contacted because you were at risk of suicide or self-harm and you did not want to participate. All of a sudden you're on the back foot trying to explain why you did not want to participate in that program. Now, this is completely overreaching their invasion into your private life. Okay, and because, as I say, when you look at these other websites, keeping blacklists, scraps fake news because it wasn't working properly, we can see that errors are going to abound in this, and because of the anonymous nature of algorithms, there is no way to undo that which has been done by the algorithm. There is no one you can contact, there is no appeal process, there is no way you can explain yourself. And one day you will sit down, just like Neo does with Mr. Smith in The Matrix, and he'll pull out this huge file on you of all of these things that they have been listing about you in the past, every like, every dislike, every comment, everything that you have done on social media will be joined together to prove that you are some kind of huge troublemaker, especially if you dare to criticize the system. And I don't believe that there is a system that is beyond criticism, and the way we come up with much better systems is to criticize those systems, to retreat them, rework them. The democracy system, as we can see, is not 100%, and it needs to change, and we bring about that change through criticism. Women would not have had the vote had Emily Pankhurst not chained herself to Buckingham Palace. Okay? That kind of protest today, you would be blacklisted in China for doing that. Okay, women would not have got the vote. You would not have moved out of chattel status. Okay, so think about that. Think about that. All of these people who are looking for rights, they're getting trashed in these algorithms. These faceless, these unaccountable algorithms that has no human contact whatsoever, but they can change your life by shutting down your access to things that you need to use. And as they said, you get someone phones you up, they get a special beep on the phone going, "Oh, hey, you're on the blacklist. Whoops, maybe I don't want to talk to that person, because that's going to affect my social credit rating because I was talking to a blacklisted person." And all of a sudden, you're in a cold, dark place with no friends and no idea how to resolve the situation. So just exactly what data are they picking up on you? Okay, this is from Town and Country. If you like gin, you might be a psychopath. The study, which surveyed a group of 1,000 participants, also determined that general bitter taste preferences were positively associated with psychopathy, everyday sadism, trait aggression, and negatively associated with agreeableness. A fondness for bitter foods like coffee, radishes, and celery is also a robust predictor for Machiavellianism and narcissism, researchers said. Okay, so pay attention here to 1,000 participants. This is a really small number of people, but they're going to be picking up information like this and putting it into their database on you. And how about this? New York Post. Are you crazy about Eminem? Would you say you're psycho for him? A recent study out of New York University examined the link between people's musical preferences and their psychopathic tendencies. Researchers had students take a test that is used to measure levels of psychopathy in individuals, wherein participants were asked to agree or disagree with statements such as, "For me, what's right is whatever I can get away with," and "love is overrated." So this is the kind of data that they're going to be picking up on your searching of the internet. And you think that they don't have it? Guess again. Cambridge Analytica has 5,000 data points on every voter in the US may be forced to reveal Trump ties. People don't realize that all of their consumer behavior, every time they swipe their credit card, what websites they visit, the TV shows they watch, is being reconnected to your voter profile and processed internationally, Carol says, and we can't opt out of it. Okay, so this is Hound Dog Steve signing off on Thursday afternoon. I hope you have a wonderful week ahead and weekend. I hope to be making another video either this evening or tomorrow. So please like and subscribe below. Click on that little bell so you'll get all of the updates. And this is Hound Dog Steve, wishing you a very pleasant day. And we will talk very, very soon. You take care now. Bye.